Part 3. What was your sweetest moment of revenge? The aforementioned call came to me at 3 p.m. on a Friday, shortly after I got home from classes. Less than 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the office of the design group's faculty advisor. I told him what happened, and what I was planning to do, including my resignation. Adam's misconduct had not only wrecked my mental state, but because I was outright afraid of being around him. I was hardly participating in the design group outside of my administrative duties after I discovered I had been assaulted by him. Faculty advisor was extremely sympathizing with what I described and directed me to hold a meeting with the elected board to announce my departure. He gave me otherwise free will to figuratively set off a bomb. I organized a meeting with the entire board for the following Monday sans Adam and alerted them that the meeting was important, all while keeping the operation under wraps from Adam. Come the Monday meeting, I had created a fun PowerPoint presentation that created a quick slideshow touching on all the topics mentioned above. The board arrived slightly tardy and were chattering amongst themselves until I launched the PowerPoint, with the words "Wake Up" call displayed on the screen. I started by thanking them for showing on such a short notice. I announced my resignation, a background of our relationship, what Adam did to me, and what I did, including making the Title IX report and what is involved by doing that. The board sat there in silence, absolutely stunned at what I was presenting them. I further went on to delegate my treasury duties, offering to assist anyone that needed it aside from Adam. I slyly mentioned that Adam was definitively the one responsible for my duties, due to his quick volunteering before, and I looked at Prey directly when I said it. The look in her eye at that moment was sheer terror. That moment of his volunteering and her comment afterward flashed through her mind. I paused for a moment to regain my composure, then continued with the presentation. I read the group's governing documentation and pasted portions from it in the presentation. I outlined their impeachment process and recommended that they vote to remove Adam from his elected position. I tossed in the group's zero-tolerance policy on intimate misconduct in the presentation for good measure. I reiterated that Adam had used me while I was unconscious, and questioned how anyone could ever consider those acts humane. Everyone else in the room was crying by the end of the presentation, which somewhat surprised me at the time. They thanked me for telling them what happened, told me they needed time to process everything, but that they would keep me updated on what they chose to do. The board also asked me if I would reconsider staying if he stepped down or was otherwise removed, to which I told them no. My justification was that my impact in the group was too deeply impacted by his behavior, and that staying around would only be keeping my wounds open. I left the meeting with a huge weight taken off my shoulders. I walked back to my car after the meeting and texted a professional resignation message in the group's communication channel, citing personal reasons and wishing the best for the group. This would be the first of the communications that Adam would receive related to the meeting that had just happened. I directed any treasury concerns to Prey while they worked to appoint a replacement. These communications were kept professional, as I intended to come out of the situation with grace. I then drove over to faculty advisor's office with the intent of catching him up on the meeting that happened. I instead pulled into the parking lot to see Adam's car parked outside. I thought to myself, oh great, he's probably inside, this might be fun. Coincidentally, Bestie was also stopping by the building, and I ran into her in the parking lot. I hadn't seen her in a while, so we hugged and I told her that I had just stepped down from my position, and that I was doing pretty rough. I told Bestie that I wanted to talk, but right then wasn't a good time, and invited her to talk later. As I turned to move inside, I saw Adam sitting inside his car, and I realized exactly what just happened. From his perspective, he thought he had dodged the Title IX bullet, just saw me hug Bestie and had likely been reading the resignation message I had sent. Furthermore, I was going into the building where the design group runs out of. To top it all off, his phone was also likely blowing up from the elected board calling and messaging him to figure out what was going on. Faculty advisor wasn't in his office when I dropped by, so I messaged him an update of what happened, and sat inside for a minute to collect myself after everything that just happened. I then walked past his car to get back to mine, ignoring his presence, and I left. I couldn't imagine what Adam was feeling at that moment, though it was likely some combination of terror and shock. It selfishly made me feel good. What secrets do you know about your partner that nobody else knows? So I met this guy through a mutual friend a few years back. He had been in the army, and that he was just moving back from Washington, D.C. I really liked him. He loved me. However, I also really liked this other guy I was seeing too. I didn't know how to choose, so I didn't. Well, by some weird circumstance he found out. I was confused how he did, as he was in my college town and the other guy was in my hometown 5 hours away, but I figured he must have just been clever. That's when things got weird. His friend I had met once texted me one day and said we need to talk. I met up with him and he basically explained to me that my newest ex was connected with some interesting people. It was then that he told me being in that position could be hazardous to my health. Turns out that friend he had was a former coworker who wanted him back in the game and that he would now be using me as leverage to get him back in. I cut off communication with my ex right there. Over the next few months some strange things happened. I'd get pulled over for no reason. I'd get random phone calls asking for people I'd never met. I was for sure being followed. I started to get scared. I knew that I had messed up and was sorry, but this was getting out of hand. I tried to go to the police. I just wanted it to stop. They needed proof. I had to show them that I was being followed and I had to be able to say who it was. It wasn't my ex. I hadn't seen him since he talked to me last. I had nothing to go on. That's when I went to my dad's friend who was a lawyer. He explained to me that if this guy was legit, if really was what I thought he was pretty much untouchable. He explained to me that I had to get proof. So I sought out to do that. I called up my ex and told him to meet me. He still loved me at that point and was pretty willing to talk. I set my digital recorder up to record him. I had to have proof. We talked but I wasn't getting anything. So I stepped it up. I straight asked him what was going on. It was then that he gave it to me. He told me he was trying to protect me, but people wanted him to do things. If he did they would hurt me. I had it. I said goodbye and went to go see my lawyer. On the drive there I wanted to hear him say it again. So I played it back. Nothing. Just static. Somehow it just went blank right before he told me. Things got bad from there. I'd get cryptic texts from numbers that weren't real numbers. I'd get emails from addresses that weren't real. It was creepy. My programmer friend at the time tried to help me track one once. When he tried he hit a wall. He told me it was the most complex system he had ever seen to cover it up. I stopped going places. It didn't leave my home. The only contact I had was the people following me. Then one night I got a call. I had changed my number, but he had my new one somehow. It was my ex. He told me to stay inside. Don't leave your house, he said. I heard the squeal of tires, the banging, the struggle. I was sure someone would call the police over it, but I remembered it was summer and everyone was gone. So I grabbed my phone. No signal. Then there was a bang on my door. Not a knock. More like a body slam. I could hear grunting and hitting. Then there was a scream. It sounded like my ex. I knew I was going to pass. I knew it. Then it stopped. It was silent. Then I heard a man on the phone talking to someone. So I tried mine again. Still nothing. There was a knock on my bedroom window. Never was I so happy to see my ex. But he was bleeding from his face. A wound right down the side. He told me to crawl out the window. We were leaving. I did as he said. I was terrified. I knew he had just ended someone and I wasn't going to say no to him. He walked me to his SUV telling me not to look at my front door. We got in his car and he drove me to a hotel. It was there a man in a suit sat me down and explained that nothing I saw had ever happened. That I was crazy and I had made it all up. I was sobbing. Then my ex grabbed my hand and looked me in the eyes. He told me nothing like this would ever happen again. That he would never let anyone hurt me. He signed a paper and put it in a briefcase for the man in the suit and walked towards the door. He then told me I would never see him again. He left. 3 years later and he has kept true to his word. I haven't seen him since. I tried to look him up about 6 months ago. Nothing. Our old mutual friend I met him through said she heard he just vanished. Date. The nut was so good I passed out and woke up in the shower. My story blew the F up. What the F? For everyone asking, and there is a lot asking, the brand is called Tabs Chocolate. Those guys sure know how to make chocolate. I even reached out to the company due to how my story blew up. They offered me a code. Use my code Alexander20 for a discount on Tabs Chocolate. You will not regret it after you're left with pretzel-like toes and distorted speech when trying these. They also said it drove so many sales that they're giving me free chocolate for life. I will be unleashing my animalistic instincts on her consistently and my girlfriend is going to love all the effing. To my girlfriend, I hope you're ready for later. Last time, I passed out and woke up in the shower. This time I lost my ability to read and sounded like Peter Griffin. Well, my girlfriend and I continued this little chocolate endeavor and took it to a new level. But first I wanted to find out if it was indeed the chocolate that gave me such a magical night last time. I went online and did some research in regards to the chocolate and the ingredients that make it so good. All the ingredients used in Tabs chocolate are widely known for increasing performance, sensitivity and overall experience in the bedroom. I had to order some more, and last night was wild to say the least. I am only now regaining my ability to read. I have not been able to do anything with my girlfriend for the past week as she has been away for work. However, we both knew what was going down as soon as she came home. She came home in the evening and we took 2 of these little chocolates each. I showed her what I found online about it and she was really interested and said she could definitely feel what I was describing to her last time. She did some research about it with me as it was kicking in, and the more information she found about it and how it affects your hormones, the more excited and into it she was getting. When the chocolate started kicking in past the point we could concentrate, we started playing a game. We would stay in separate rooms and text each other, seeing who caves and comes running in first. Eventually, she could not take it and ran in. I mean, this woman sprinted. She started out with kegels and told me to just relax and let it take over. Do not force anything. And I was in heaven. I was thanking the chocolate gods for sending me this gift. I am sure my face was contorting and I felt myself drooling. After what seemed like an eternity she stopped. I looked up at her signaling for her to keep going. She told me she had forgotten something, and proceeded to take some sour candies. If you read my first story, you know how that turned out. She then proceeded to start at my neck and kiss slowly all the way down. When she finally got to the sweet spot she told me to relax and she took it slow. It was ending me. I was drooling, words and coherent sentences were not a real thing, and my hands were tingling, very powerfully. As I was about to nut, she sped up and went all out. The sensation is an indescribable one. I lunged my hips forward, vision went white and I think the nut itself went on for 40 to 60 seconds. As I was releasing, I let out an arg that sounded way different. My girlfriend wiped her mouth and burst out laughing, literally screaming and laughing, calling me Peter Griffin all over again, imitating what I just sounded like. I lay there, my legs rattling, not a care in the world that I sounded like Peter Griffin while nutting. After 10 minutes of laying there I sat up to throw on some Netflix and recharge for more activities. I quickly realized all the letters were blurry, and struggled very hard to make out even simple words such as jump or hunger.